Hi everybody, Levi Clay here, and I'm back again for another lesson. This time we are going to be taking the triad concept that I'd looked at in the last lesson that I covered with you, and we're going to expand upon that a little bit more, developing these triad voicings into more scalar ideas and melodic fragments that you can use for playing over changes, etc. And there's a ton that can be done with these triads, and it is a lot of fun. But if you did miss that last lesson, I would definitely recommend that you go back and look at it, because it's relatively important that you can play through these triads, that you can visualize, I guess, these triads incredibly quickly. That's what's going to kind of help you fluidly play through chord changes. So yeah, and as with the last lesson, I will be putting transcriptions, tabs, diagrams, etc. For this stuff up for my Patreon supporters. So if you do want to check me out on Patreon, there is a link in the description. Anyway, on with the lesson. So just in review, we're going to deal with major sounds today. Last time we were looking at these basic major triad voicings, right? And when you can play all of these without really thinking about it, and you can visualize chord changes, like for example, C, F, and G, C, F, G, back to my C, C, F, G, back to C. When I can visualize through my changes like that, I'm definitely ready to start looking at playing some melodic fragments. So how are we going to do this? Well, as with last time, we were really looking at the D, G and B strings, and I'm going to stick to those strings for this lesson just so you don't get overwhelmed with information. But remember, once you are comfortable with these strings, you should then take this concept and apply it to each one of these triad voicings. So in the last year or so, couple of years, there has been a big resurgence of the popularity of the concept of intervals, talking about intervals when learning the guitar, and that's very much how I play. It's very much how I visualize the neck. When I play these voicings, although they are obviously shapes, anytime I play, for example, this, I know that I'm playing my root, the root of G, the third, and the fifth. That information is very important, and we're going to be developing on that further in future lessons. I'm going to teach you how to play, triads as substitutes for seventh chords and extended chords, and for all your comping tricks and all of that. Lots will be covered there. But we're going to expand upon this from a more linear or scalar perspective. So when I take each one of these triads, and I know that I have my root, my third, and my fifth, now I can connect these up in any way, shape or form. Now this will sound very similar to an old lesson that I did on triads and turning triads into melodies, and to be honest it is very similar. We're just going to be presenting a slightly different exercise for practicing it. So if you have watched that, I do apologise, but for those of you that are new, let's go over the concept. So the first two notes of that triad, the root and the third. Now I can connect those two notes melodically. This is me playing them as a chord, but I could go between the root and the third by adding in, well, I could play the second. And that's a melodic fragment. And I want you to learn that. Anytime we play that G major triad, or this major triad shape, I should say, we can always connect that, like that. That's going to sound relatively melodic. And to kind of finish out that position, if you like, I think it actually sounds perfectly fine to go from the third to the fifth. But I like to add the sixth on top of the fifth. So here's the fifth degree of the scale, and then the sixth will be a tone higher. So now going from the root, we have, it's actually a major pentatonic fragment. Now anytime I see this chord fragment, I visualize that kind of melodic fragment, if you like. That sounds absolutely fine when I play that. And you could use that, albeit a little bit abruptly, to outline chord changes if you really wanted to. If you wanted to play, I guess, a diatonic, like a 1-4-5, like a blues 1-4-5. If I was playing G, C, and D, that's me using the voice leading that we looked at last time. But if I applied that and literally just moved G, C, and D, you could play melodic fragments. And that kind of sounds like that chord progression. Like I say, a little bit ham-fisted because you're having to drag your hand around. But you can definitely hear those chord changes, or at least as you develop, you'll start to hear those chord changes. that sounds like those chord changes. So that's our little melodic fragment for this E-shaped triad, if you like. Now if we move up to the next triad on that string grouping, your next triad will come out of that C shape. So when we play that, we'll have the exact same concept. We can take the lowest note of the triad, in this case it's the third of the chord, and I can just continue out and play a major pentatonic fragment. So we have the third, followed by the fifth, then the sixth, then the root. And if I wanted to, I could add that ninth on top. So just playing that major triad, and then the melodic fragment. Now when you are doing this, I think the real key factor, and the reason we haven't learned scales first, we learned triads and then scales, is that we are trying to keep track of where the chord is. So I don't want you to just learn a major pentatonic fingering like some do, and they go, and they just do this all day long. It doesn't mean anything to them. They're just learning a physical shape that they can then blast through at speed. We're not really interested in the speed side of things. Music's not a race, right? When I'm playing this, I know that this is a chord tone, this is a chord tone, this is not, this is not, and this is. So when I'm playing my melodic fragments, there's nothing wrong with those notes that aren't chord tones, but they're certainly not notes that you want to come to rest on. You wouldn't want to play... It sounds really unfinished, but if I go... Suddenly that sounds like a melodic fragment that's been completed. So, 2 melodic fragments. That's me playing just little melodies that sound like a G chord. G and G. We could continue and move up to the final G triad position, or G inversion I should say. And there's really 2 ways that you can approach this. When I was younger, I absolutely liked to visualize it as being this. So I would play that chord with my 3rd finger, and that would encourage me to play the notes that are behind the chord. So, but I'm not so crazy on that now. Now when I visualize this, I tend to play it with my index finger. And then note-wise, we'd have the same notes, but instead we'd be fingering them as... So a little melodic fragment there around that 12th fret, 12 and 14, 12 and 14, and then 12 on the B string. Now of course you might look at that and say, well that's E minor pentatonic, right? Now of course you'd be absolutely right, but I think the key thing to remember is that when I am improvising and I'm getting that G sound, when I'm playing like that, although technically I'm playing notes of the E minor pentatonic scale, that doesn't sound anything like E minor, right? And guitar players tend to be dreadful for that. We tend to be really bad at thinking in terms of physical shapes on the instrument, and then when we play our physical shapes, it sounds like the one that we're actually thinking of. So a lot of guitar players think minor, so when they try to play major pentatonic, it really just sounds minor. And likewise, if you're a major pentatonic player and you eventually learn minor, you just play all this stuff that sounds major. And I'm not a fan of that. It's derivative modal theory, and parallel modal theory all the way. That's the way to go there. Though again, subject for another day. So now we've got these 3 triad positions: G, G, and G. And in each one of those, I've got my melodic fragment. And then I'm back where I started. Now already that kind of sounds like music to me, right? I'm a big fan of that kind of swing feel. Play that at speed. 1, 2, 3, 4. That kind of sounds like something like music. I can certainly imagine, you know, like a swing band behind a melodic fragment like that. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is take a simple melodic fragment, like that's going to be our fragment. Now, it doesn't matter rhythmically how you play it, it's about the shape, the contour of the outline. So I play the lowest note in the triad, I move up, and then play the highest, back to the middle, and then resolve to the chord tone. So there's our little melodic fragment. That kind of sounds like a G. We'll do the same thing here. So I'm using the same shape, the same contour of line. I'm not playing the same notes. I'm playing the lowest note of the triad again, 2 notes on the G string, highest note on the B, back to the G string, and then resolving to a chord tone. And I can do the same on the next inversion, A shape. I guess you do that. That kind of works. So now I've got this melodic fragment that I can use for my 3 G triads. Playing little random bits of improvisation at the end then. Yeah, point is, every time I do that, it very much sounds like a G chord. Now, before finishing this up and adding in some chord changes, I also just want to draw attention to something else that I do a lot when I do this, and that's playing the flat third instead of the second. So in each one of these triad positions, I know where the third of the chord is. And when I'm doing that, I love approaching that note from a semitone below. Obviously, very bluesy, very jazz blues to do that. So sometimes, in fact, often, instead of playing, I'll actually play. When I'm here, I know that my third is here, so I can approach it from a semitone below. And when I'm here, cool. So that sounds good, adding those minor thirds in, and you want to spend some time getting comfortable going between these shapes. So a thing that I might play, or a thing that I often play, triad-wise would be this, going to this, going to this, and then resolving to here. So you got, and the line might be something like, let's play. So there's that move from the E shape to the C shape, and then I use that as a transition to the next triad, and then resolving. One more time. Words to that effect. Bum note in there somewhere, but you get the idea. So triad-wise, you can hear that everything I played there sounded very much like a G chord, and hopefully I've explained how and why it sounded like a G chord. Now, of course, your final exercise is going to be to take this concept, to take these triad fragments, if you like, and to be able to outline just basic chord changes with these. Now, I'm talking major chords. We've not dealt in minor chords, we've not dealt in seventh chords, anything like that. We're just dealing in playing major pentatonic sounds over major chords, which is a perfectly acceptable sound. So if we just take like a 1-4-5 again, like we'll just keep coming back to that because it's so prevalent. If we do that in C, we'd have C, F, and G. Now when I lay them out on the fretboard like that, hopefully we can see, well, I play this, F, G, C. Do that again, C, F, G, C. Again, C, F, G, C. And one last time, C, F, G, C. Now when I play a fragment like that, I would like to think you can hear those chord changes very well. Being able to do this is about being able to fluently play each of those triads in each position. Now you will have learned that from last time, C, F, G. Now suddenly, F, G, and then C. C, F, G. Melodic fragments around the triads. We played this one, C, F, G. Easy. Here, C, F, G. So C, F, G, C, C, F, G. One last time. Play each position. C, F, and G. C, F, G, and then C. C, F, G, C, C, so F, G, there we go. Get some melodies in there. So there we go. Everything that you would need to know about taking the triads that we looked at in the previous lesson and developing them into something a little bit more melodic, something that you can use when looking to play melodies. Hopefully that was of use to you. As always, you can check me out on Patreon if you want transcriptions, tabs, diagrams, etc. of all of that stuff. Useful resource, lots of fun. And speaking of which, just a big thank you to some of my supporters over on Patreon. Hope you guys got a lot out of this lesson. Yeah, as always, I'm in that comment section, happy to help you out with it. If you have any questions, that is what I am here to do. And I'll also make mention of my books because I do cover this triad concept in considerable detail in a lot of the country books, because what you can get from seeing me play is this is genuinely how I visualize the neck. This is how I actually play the guitar. And it helps me play over changes. We're just dealing in major chords here, but when you start turning these into seventh chords, like jazz changes, the concept is very much the same, and I can fluidly connect those together. So if you want to check out a book to support me, that is a great way of doing so. Right, as always, you can click this button up here to subscribe. Button up here, Patreon, there we go. That button to subscribe, and 2 more of my videos here and here. Much love, and I will see you for another lesson in the future. Goodbye.